Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of Game Over, where we discuss interesting topics while playing some badass video games. Today we got a special game going, really popular game at that, Grand Theft Auto Online. Now, this has been out for a while, hasn't it, Shay?
Yeah, most definitely.
I feel like they updated the formula quite a few times. As you can see, some gnarly car action going on.
Yeah. I think this game came
Yeah.
out when I was a freshman in high school.
Ooh, damn. That must have been a while,
Yeah.
right? You don't sound like no freshman no
Yeah.
more, I can tell you that. Yeah, it's been out for a while. I've just never really, I mean, I guess aside from the online version, I've never really been a fan of Grand Theft Auto. I just like personally, I feel like games should be more science fiction. You know what I mean? Like this is just way
Yeah, I
too
see where you're coming
realistic
from.
of a game for me. Except with the online, they actually made it as if you're Batman. You know, all these neat little gadgets and like all this arsenal that you can keep growing.
For real, I quit GTA Online.
Yeah, it wasn't for you.
For me, it was just like it's really hard to make money in the game, and like they kind of I don't want to say urge you to, but they kind of like point you to like microtransactions and in-game or for
Hmm.
in-game money, stuff like that.
You know what's funny about that is that you're bringing us to the topic of our podcast today, right? Because it feels like the only way to actually make money in this game, like the only real way of making a lot of money, is through crime, right? Like you're going around doing
Yeah.
these heists, killing these people, and doing all this random stuff, and
Hmm.
and it's all illegal. Like in an ideal world, all of this would obviously be illegal, right? In
Yeah.
no way, shape, or form would any of it, with hijacking a plane in the middle of daylight after killing the owners of the plane would be illegal. But you know, this is something that I feel is good about the video game medium, right? You could just
Yeah.
release your inner demons in games like this and not have to like go out and actually, you know, find a prostitute and start beating the shit out of her or find
Yeah.
an old person and just run him over just out of spite. You know, you could do that in the game, but you can't really do that in real life. So that sort of releases your frustration when you do that in the game. You know, it releases your inner
Yeah.
demons, and so that's why I feel like games are a really good medium to just vent everything out, right?
Yeah. It's more like a way to immerse yourself into like maybe not a fantasy world, but like it could be anybody's ideal world, maybe. Maybe not ours, but
I wouldn't say ideal, man. None of this.
yeah.
I mean,
A
unless
world
you're
to
like a
escape to.
sadistic, crazy sort of person, but you know, I tend to stay
Yeah.
away from those people. So the issue here is, you know, despite the fact that we're joking about this, and despite the fact that what you and I would consider to be an ideal world is a world where no crime is happening, right?
Hmm.
Or much less amount of crime than what we're getting nowadays. And so, you know, the unfortunate truth is crime has skyrocketed recently. And,
For
you
sure.
know, obviously, this stems from the fact that, you know, we're going through a phase that I believe the world has never really been through before. I mean, it's been through it, but not as heavily. You know, it hasn't inflicted such a heavy toll before as it has in terms of the economy, right?
Yeah.
Especially in our like new 21st century industrialized world that where everything is relying on materialism. And so these days with the whole corona epidemic, the people that were struggling to find a job before are now struggling even more. The people that
Hmm.
were living, you know, from paycheck to paycheck with low wage positions are now out of a job and they don't know what to do. You know, they got kids relying on them, they got mouths to feed, they got bills to pay. So The issue is a lot of these people are starting to feel like, you know what, the system is rigged, the system doesn't care about us, so why should we
Mhm.
care about the system? So,
Yeah,
people essentially start looking for ways to make money that's not necessarily legal and end up committing a crime in one way or another that may not cause any implications on them per se, but the people who are victimized by those crimes are the ones that are suffering.
yeah, and they're like, it's almost like they're targeting the wrong person. Like you want to get back at these big corporations, this company, from like just from off the stuff that I see, like on Twitter, just or Reddit, like places like that. But you like they don't realize that they're hurting. Like when the riots were happening, for instance, out here,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people were hurting like small businesses or business. Just because somebody owns a business doesn't make them a corporation. They still have family and people to feed. They have to fix that stuff out their own pocket type.
Mm-hmm.
Like it, it affects people who have nothing to do with like your vendetta type. Like if that makes sense.
See, that is also something that I've begun to notice, that these people that are struggling with the current system, they never try to go after the bigger corporations simply because of the
Yeah, they're
fact
just
that it
making
would be
other people suffer.
suicide. It would be suicide, correct?
Yeah. Hmm.
They feel like it's a means to an end, and I'm obviously laying the blame on the system. But at the same
Yeah.
time, I'm laying the blame on them because they gave up. And that's my issue with crime and the people that commit these crimes. They gave up on finding the right way, on doing the right thing. They gave up on the right morals. They gave up on faith, faith in God, in hope, whatever it is that you believe in. They gave
In
up on the
themselves.
goodness of their own hearts. And that's my issue. That's what I take issue with in terms of, people who commit these acts of crime. And let me just say, so I have an article that I found when I was researching this topic, and within this article, so I'm going to actually put a link to the full article in the description box below if anyone wants to check it out. But within this article, the demographic, they reached out to a rather it's not necessarily a big demographic, but it was a large demographic, and
Yeah.
it was within the state of Pennsylvania and Maryland. And so I'm going to go into the specifics, but this is just sort of a disclaimer to the viewers that are listening. This has nothing to do with the color of your skin. Whether you're white, black, brown, yellow, indigo, red, freaking crimson, all the colors of the rainbow for all I care. This has nothing to do with what color you are. This is
Yeah.
simply the fact that crime is not the answer. This is what I believe. Now, Shay, you could have your own belief. Others could think of it in a different way. And I don't mind debating with those people on how they think. But at the end of the day, I firmly believe that crime is not the answer. Because what you're doing to others will eventually turn around and bite you in the ass. Right? Whether it's the
Yeah.
system catching up with you, whether it's you get caught in the act by said person and he fights back, and you end your life for absolutely no reason aside from the fact that you were not satisfied with the hand that was dealt to you.
Hmm.
And there are many other ways where you eventually will not be able to make it if you go down that path. But if you look at the people that started from nothing and actually made it all the way to the top, dug their way through mud with their own blood, sweat, and tears to make it all the way to the top.
Yeah.
What do they got that you don't got? What is your excuse?
Yeah. That's true.
You understand me? So that's the point I'm trying to make. The people who commit these crimes, they decided that, you know what, the system isn't giving me what I want. I'm not getting what I want in the legal way. I feel like I'm owed a lot more than this. I feel like I'm treated less than a person. I feel like that I'm treated worse than an animal. Then this is how I'm gonna do it. This is how I'm gonna make a living, by robbing people that have nothing to do with any of it, by selling drugs to people who might not even know what they're buying from you. They just take it and ruin the rest of their lives, by
Mm-hmm.
doing crazy, sadistic things that eventually get you caught. And then you end up throwing your life away anyway,
Mm-hmm.
or even worse.
And it's
And
one thing I
so,
want to add.
yeah.
I feel like just because sometimes just because something is against the law, it doesn't always mean that it's a crime. But either way, you have to be conscious of what you're doing or what's going on. Like say, what I have in mind is like smoking weed type shit.
Mm-hmm.
Some places it might be illegal.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
But see,
so
that's a whole other thing,
yeah,
Shay. I'm talking. So what you're talking about is sort of a misdemeanor, right? It's not
yeah,
really.
yeah, yeah. You're
That's
talking
not
about like
really a crime.
felonies
Yeah,
and
that's not really a crime. But it's a good thing that you brought that up, because again, and I lay most of the blame on the system.
hmm
For people who commit these misdemeanors, for example, as you just said with the weed, why is it that these people, when they get caught and go to jail, why is it that the rest of their lives, for the rest of their lives, this is put on their permanent record, and they're being dragged down by the same system that's trying to make them not do this
yeah, it's
same
supposed
error
to.
again?
hmm That's supposedly supposed to reinstate you or help you
How
out
does
or
that
some
even
shit.
make sense, Shay? Like
Yeah,
I'm just trying to make sense of it all.
I be
So,
trying to
okay,
figure it out every day.
they bring you in and they tell you not to do this again, and they try to make you learn your lesson by locking you up. So that as soon as you leave there, that's it. You learn your lesson. Now you're gonna find a job. You're gonna quit drugs. You're gonna try to do the right thing, right? But you
Yeah.
leave and you see the whole world looking down on you for committing a single simple misdemeanor. The whole world looking down on you to the point where you can't find a
hmm
decent job. Nobody trusts you. Everybody that does a background search on you thinks you're a pothead.
Yeah, they're gonna
But
see you
that's not
different.
really the case. You committed a misdemeanor because you're human, and everybody does it. Everybody makes mistakes. Even the biggest
hmm
CEOs of the biggest companies, even the president of the United States. Everybody,
Yeah.
everybody makes mistakes. Everybody deserves
hmm
a second chance. But the way the system has it all wrapped up, it doesn't work out for
Like
you. It doesn't work out for
you
anybody.
might get that
It's
second chance, but
counterproductive.
you'll still be judged.
Exactly, and that's the point. It's a lot harder for you when you're being judged for something that you did, as out of stupidity, out of like a moment's lapse. It's hard
hmm
to make your way forward if the system doesn't at least cover for you the first few mistakes that you had.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's counterproductive, and I feel like they really should work on it and make sure that everybody gets to keep their rights. Everybody gets their slap on the wrist. Everybody gets to
And like
have
they
fair judgment when it comes to misdemeanors, crimes, whatever the case may be. It has to be fair for all races, for all type of people, and they
hmm
have to be more lenient and more accepting of people who commit crimes, or people who commit misdemeanors, and they want to have a better life for themselves, for their
hmm
families. They should always look at the bigger picture. This is what I'm saying. If a system is supposed to judge you and make sure that everybody's in the right place, then it's supposed to look at the bigger picture. It's supposed to do the right thing, not what's happening these days.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, I also feel like the system is also a part of the problem. Like you have these people, you have doctors, you know, over like giving away, you know, perks and all these other things. Like yeah, and it's being like looked away just because you know the or getting a blind eye turned to it because you know it's a doctor who wrote it. But like I literally just had a friend come from the doctors the other day. He got in a car accident and
Yeah,
they were prescribing him all these different pain pills and stuff. He's like, nah, like I'm straight because I don't want to end up hooked on that. But it's
yeah.
like those same people who they give those drugs to could get caught with that and end up
and
going to
and and
jail.
not
But
just that, Shay. By the way, that's a good point. It's not just that. Look at the record labels. Look at the
oh
music
yeah,
labels. Look at the
for
music
sure,
labels. Look at
for
what they're
sure.
teaching kids from the second they start understanding and listening to music and going to school and listening to what their classmates are
Hmm.
listening to. Look at the type of lyrics they're hearing, right? So a little trivia about me: I used to live in California, and
Hmm.
at some point in my life, I was living with a couple of hoodlums,
Hmm.
gangsters and whatnot. And the ringleader, he was a kid who grew up with a junkie mother, and his dad shot himself as a kid. And so he lived all of his life on the street. Now, when you live in your life on the street and you listen to that type of music all day, every day, like till I met him, he was listening to that type of music and like saying the lyrics back, and he was so affected by that music that I don't think I've ever seen him a single time without some kind of crazy song playing in the background about shooting people up or doing drugs or having sex with random prostitutes, crazy shit like that. And so
Yeah.
that affects his mentality to the point where he thinks that it's okay now to do all this crazy shit. It's okay to go and steal and rob and sell drugs and like have sex with prostitutes all the time. And so that's his life down the drain. He didn't have a choice in what happened in his life in terms of what happened with his family.
Hmm.
He ended up growing up on the streets, the same streets that are run by the system that ran him through the mud and let him become what he is right now, trying to fight against the system using crime and using illegal ways that eventually got him caught more than once. So I feel like every case is different, and I'm not saying that a lot of these people felt like they were cornered with this. You know what I mean? Like they had no other choice. There was no way out. The only way was to steal, sell drugs, do whatever it is that they needed to do to make it, to survive. And that's a certain minority, by the way, according to the statistics from the report that I'm about to come to in a second. That's a minority because most of the people, especially drug dealers, they make a lot more money than they need. They make
Yeah.
more money than they require to survive, to eat, to drink, to live in a respectable home. So it's not a necessity for the majority of these drug dealers or the suppliers or whatever it is. It's not a necessity for them to actually be committing the crime. A really small portion of the people, a minority of the people within this study and within many other studies that you can search up online, they're people who just sort of got the short end of the stick, as they say, right? The ones that are
Yeah.
trying to make it. But then when they actually get into the drug business and they make it, they get hooked on it, right? So now I want to make more. Now I want to reach out more people. Now I want to start doing this as a business, right? And so they end up
Yeah.
making it through the drug business. And it's not just in America, because America, like now, is becoming, legal in many places and become more common than anything. But most of the world, about 70% of the world, drugs are illegal there. And so the people selling drugs are always the greedy people. Are always the people that are trying to make bank through drugs and just, living la vida loca, just going crazy with it. And so, it's those that I'm essentially trying to understand, like, how far do you think you're going to go when you've got something that big, you got an operation that big going on, and you're targeted by so many people, your competitors, the authorities, the country itself that you're in, the country that you're throwing that shit at. You're targeted by so many people. How do you think this is going to end for you? These people.
Yeah, like when would they feel like they were gonna stop, or maybe they never will?
Exactly. How do you think it ended for Pablo Escobar?
Yeah.
For Frank Lucas?
Mm-hmm. It ended up catching up to him.
Exactly. So
But you
that's
think
what I'm
that's more
saying.
of a
Like,
reputation thing?
why are they not understanding that this isn't the way? Why are they not understanding that, it's one thing to be doing the drugs, but to actually be selling the drugs, that's a lot worse. Because it's not your life that you're throwing away. It's all these people that are taking the drugs from you. And so you go down that route and you hurt that many people and you expect nothing's going to happen to you? I mean, even if you don't believe in God, but at least you have the common sense to believe in karma.